the title of my talk, oh, there we go, is the World System AI, Cybernetic Intelligence Alignment Problem. And what I'm trying to develop is a critical systems theory of catastrophic risk from unaligned human, collective, and artificial intelligence. Here you'll see this, the imagery is trying to represent that the world system itself is a form of AI on the left, and that also it's developing AI to reproduce itself, or conversely, that AI will reshape the world system in its own image. The logo represents this idea that AI and the world system are being integrated with each other, that they're not. AI isn't simply this value neutral technology that exists in a vacuum. So as with my pitch, I presented this image of the silicon of the ghost in the shell, which I think captures this cybernetic idea. So you can view the lady, the woman in the middle as an artificial intelligence or as a human intelligence, with wires coming out of her, to being integrated into this technological system. So I'm approaching this from the standpoint of cybernetics, and the idea that cybernetics is a form of philosophy. So if anyone's not familiar, cybernetics is attempting to create this general systems theory and transdiscipline. So it's defined as communication and control in the animal and the machine. It's a form of cross-disciplinary thought. It's trying to create this universal language to allow communication across disciplines. It's trying to bridge the arts and the humanities. The term itself is derived from the Greek word for steersman, and Norbert Wiener, the founder of the field, he refers to the steering engines of a ship as this like ideal representation of a feedback mechanism, and in doing so, he's invoking Plato's analogy of the ship of the state, and thus situating cybernetics within the history of philosophy and as an extension of philosophy. So it's quite an ambitious, grand project of creating this second mother of all disciplines, or queen science, to create to realize the unity of science and a theory of everything. That perhaps you could say classical philosophy was started out with. Gordon Pask, a British cybernetician, he defined cybernetics as the science or the art of manipulating defensible metaphors. So the original metaphor that started cybernetics was between the nervous system and the computer network. That so you see conceptual borrowing in like medical science and in computer science. This idea of like signals, and what cybernetics is trying to do is trying to extend these symmetries between man and machine, or in Plato's case, the state and the ship, and to see what implications can be discovered. So he writes that cybernetics is primarily concerned with establishing isomorphisms. That it involves analogical reasoning. Okay, so within the AI literature, the alignment problem refers to the task of safely designing and deploying AI systems so that they do not optimize for reductionist goals and externalize harm to moral patients, sentient minds, or sentiocentric values in the process. I think this quote by Russell is quite a good articulation. A system that is optimizing a function will often set the remaining unconstrained variables to extreme values. If one of those unconstrained variables is actually something we care about, the solution found may be highly undesirable. So many people have critiqued the kind of traditional formulation of the alignment problem as being very anthropocentric. It excludes non-human animals and other sentient minds, perhaps alien intelligence. And I think one of the talks involved in this conference is trying to open that discussion up. I think partly why human values have been emphasized is because there are certain, like, perhaps utilitarian problems about like the sheer biomass of certain like insects, for instance, But what I'm trying to do here is actually critique the alignment problem for being AI centric. That it's only this idea of aligning intelligence is only being conceptualized in relation to like machine intelligence or silicon-based intelligence. So I'm trying to extend and generalize the alignment problem to other types of intelligence and to intelligence itself. Now, I think this has already been raised, but perhaps not fully articulated. So Yudkowsky writes that when we talk about AIs, we are really talking about minds in general or optimization processes in general. So you could view this as a process philosophy of intelligence, as continuous, uncontained, unclassified. Some periods have referred to this as open-ended intelligence. So it's about considering the wider space of possible minds, processes and forms of intelligence. So you can view evolution, humanity as a whole, sentient life as a whole, civilization, or even the universe as a form of optimization process, or like hyper object is a term that's used, or an assemblage. I think this formulation by Yudkowsky also has a very cybernetic philosophy to it. So it's looking at steering processes or steering machines that are teleological, purpose-driven, that narrow the future towards a certain path. So you can kind of view this from two perspectives. You can view optimization and steering moving forward, but you could also view it as an attractor state or set point, is the term in control theory, which is like an out-branch of cybernetics. You could view that as the present is moving, is being drawn towards this future state. So I have this meme here that I think kind of captures these ideas. So you see philosophy is pointing its gun at cybernetics and is saying that like we've always known that all of civilization in the universe is steering machines, and cybernetics founded in the 1950s is only discovering this now. Spaceship Earth is this idea by Buckminster Fuller, which modernizes Plato's ship of the state to encompass the entire globe. He wrote a book called Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth, so you could view that as an early attempt to try and create this manual for aligning the world system or civilization, however you want to conceptualize it. And then I have a kind of parallel version that's more specific to the AI discourse. And it's essentially drawing the parallel between the paperclip maximizer as this hypothetical scenario of unaligned ASI and global capitalism as it exists today and as it has existed historically. And that anti-capitalists are aware of this this danger with a powerful system optimizing for a very narrow metric, and AI doomers are only now like warning about it. And yeah, so I've titled it "Steering Machines All the Way Down" or "Paperclip Maximizers All the Way Down." So there's this idea of like infinite regress, or that on the micro, macro, and meta levels, it's the same structure that's being reproduced, that's externalizing harm. So whilst this paradigm is quite novel, I think it is actually gaining some traction. So the AI Objectives Institute was founded in 2021. Peter Eckersley, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he passed away recently, which is quite sad, but he left quite the legacy. And it was founded on this recognition that both capitalism and AI are powerful optimization systems that have the wrong objective function. They're misaligned. And so we have to align AI, markets, and humanity in synergy. And so I think really what I'm to try and like philosophically ground this, I'm advocating for a non-anthropocentric, multi-agent, flat ontology. It's very wordy, but it's essentially saying that humans are on, or perhaps it's methodologically thinking about humans as ontologically equal rather than ontologically privileged as agents, and that's different from saying that they're like morally equal. So there's this quote by Lovecraft: "In your mind, man is the center of everything, and his exact conformation to certain regulations of conduct, however affected, is the only problem in the universe." So he's articulating there this like human alignment problem. In philosophy, there's this recent movement called speculative realism, and they're trying to move past what they term correlationism, which is about how all of philosophy seems to be about the human mind's relation to the world, when there's so much more out there. So they refer to this idea of the great outdoors. Latour has this quote: "If you are mixed up with trees, how do you know they're not using you to achieve their dark designs?" Which I think articulates this like object-oriented ontological approach, which is trying to broaden how we see the world. I think it's very similar to Yudkowsky's "The AI does not love you, nor does it hate you, but you are made out of atoms, which you can use for something else." I think both those quotes kind of catch this idea of what I'm developing as critical alien phenomenology, which asks the question, what is it like to be a thing? What do objects experience? So it's a kind of speculative, looking at a speculative perception and cognition of non-conscious entities. This non-anthropocentric approach does have a few initial concepts to back it up. So Peter Scheer, again, if I'm mispronouncing his name, I apologize. He referred to the idea of entity alignment. In his context, he was referring to corporations as real entities. It's this theory in company law that corporations function as autonomous agents or legal persons or corporate bodies. It reflects the idea in political philosophy by Hobbes that states are forms of artificial men. I think it generally reflects how people talk about nation states and corporations every day. Like they talk about like OpenAI does X, or the UK or the EU does X, like it's a single unified actor. And I think this term entity alignment, it's more encompassing of humans, post-humans, and more than human assemblages and systems comprised of both human and artificial intelligences. And then there's this idea by the Aligning Complex Systems research group of alignment interfaces. So the AI discourse predominantly is looking at the interface between humanity and AI. Is AI aligned with human values? But there are also, there's like the inverse interface between AI and humanity. So in the like classic takeover scenarios, the problem is that AI is manipulating humans and trying to align them with its own goals. So I think Yudkowsky talks about how an AI could manipulate someone into 3D printing a virus. And so the AI has a human alignment problem that it has to solve in order to pursue its goal system, at least early on. These interfaces also between states and corporations and AI. So the whole debate over like there being an arms race between the US and China for AI supremacy, they'll have their own AI labs, and is the AI going to be aligned with the nation state or humanity as a whole? Then there are also interfaces between non-AI agents, so between states and between corporations. So that the whole discourse around regulatory capture of the government by big tech. Then also on the more meta level, there's an interface between the world system as this cybernetic collective intelligence and humanity as a whole. Is it optimized? Is it emergently vectoring towards a future that's desirable? Okay, yeah, I've already discussed this. Yeah, so the result of this like ontological shift is that you're looking at now a complex network of interrelations rather than a singular relation. So all agents have goals, capabilities, and a level of interpretability of other agents. and they're engaged in a constant process of internal and external agent alignment, capability control, and interpretability. So there's this model of inner alignment failure in AI systems, that you will have a messer optimizer, a secondary optimizer that has been created by a primary optimizer, and that sometimes there can be like a principal agent problem between the two optimizers, where the second one will pursue a goal that's at odds with the initial goal that was intended by the first optimizer. And I think you can generalize that model to like human systems. So everyone is a citizen of a state, but they may have divergent interests. Within the AI space, AI researchers may have like self-interested motives that are misaligned with the rhetoric or the actual goals of the AI research organization itself. Yeah, so you view from the perspective of the world system that it has a reverse alignment problem or human alignment problem. That just like the AI that is indifferent to humans, it also has its own goals and will utilize humans for its purposes. This reframing reflects this idea of second order cybernetics, which is trying to look at systems not as passive objects subject to alignment by humans, but as active forces that are subjecting humans to alignment themselves. So you can see this value conflict or value war between global capitalism that has to align humans, human institutions, and human collective intelligence with its own values and goals and objectives, and then humans with their own utility functions that are trying to flourish and ensure their own survival as a species. Now, this reverse alignment problem or human alignment problem will be familiar to all states and intelligence agencies, and any like civilization throughout the past that's engaged in perceptual control or propaganda, regulatory power, or using laws to structure incentives, and integrating intelligence into itself. So you could see the entire labor for income for survival system as monopolizing people's time and energy to serve the goals of the world system. So the result practically is that, as well as trying to align the world system with humans, we also have to consider de-aligning humans with the world system, so counteracting the like reverse alignment measures that the world system as an AI is taking. More abstractly, the alignment problem has been like, implicitly formulated by Toby Ord as the power without wisdom problem. He derives this from Carl Sagan, and this is like the core thesis of the precipice, that our predicament stems from the rapid growth of humanity's power outstripping the slow and unsteady growth of our wisdom. So you could view power as instrumental rationality and wisdom as value rationality, and that there's this gap between them. And so it was kind of like astounding to me that Ord didn't like articulate this problem in the language of AI and cybernetics, because it's a form of alignment problem. So as well as there being a like world system alignment problem and an AI alignment problem, as Tegmark has pointed out, the issue with capitalism and the issue with AI are kind of merged now. There are some great quotes by again recently founded institutes that what's happening with AI is that one kind of non-aligned agent may just make better use of another, and the general populace will suffer as a result. So the way that I frame it is that AI is this really powerful optimizer that's value flattening, that's being stacked onto and integrated into an existing really powerful optimizer that's value flattening. So it's just going to exacerbate the problem. The world system alignment problem has also been framed as the market economy alignment problem on the EA forum. The post was a short form, and it was quite good because it noted that EA is traditionally culturally opposed to critiques of capitalism. I think that's why she framed it as the market economy alignment problem, because it's more perhaps technical and less like ideologically charged. And she also noted that this doesn't seem to have been pursued, but there's something there. Like it seems like there's this clear parallel. A number of prominent AI researchers, Alan Defoe, Paul Cristiano, and Joshua Bengio, they've all written virtually symmetrical paragraphs about how the problem of aligning corporations is a good parallel to explain how, the AI alignment problem, but you can also flip it. And how essentially corporations are engaged in specification gaming, just like an AI is. So humans don't want AI corporations to generate profit from harm externalizing economic activity like pollution, or that cause economic crashes. But the value system that's been put into these corporations is just to maximize shareholder value or profit. So it's this proxy goal, and the corporations will find loopholes that are negative socially, but that produce profit. Hillebrand, he's written a post on corporate global catastrophic risks, where he's arguing that corporations are already the distal cause and main driver of anthropogenic and emergent technological GTRs. I think anyone that's following the AI space at the minute, with all the mass exodus from OpenAI of alignment researchers, will see that this is fairly compelling. Stuart Russell and Max Tegmark, they've used the fossil fuel industry and social media algorithms as existing superintelligences that are misaligned and that are externalizing harm in their own ways, like causing climate change, causing mass psychological problems. Tegmark notes that the same techniques that are being used to shut down the AI X risk discourse are the techniques that were used with big tobacco and big oil. And so there's this continuation of trends. You may also talk about the nation-state alignment problem. So according to neo-realism, states are power maximizers that are engaged in competition and conflict for geopolitical security. And states, they inverse instrumentalize humans as weapons of war. So again, there's this amoral alien perspective. It's the same under neoliberalism. States are growth maximizers, and they inverse instrumentalize humans as economic machines. You could view the liberal international order as a collective intelligence nanny. So there's this idea of an AI nanny that will look after humans. And the goal of the liberal international order, at least in an idealized way, is to peacefully mediate competition, to prevent escalation, and to maintain a balance of power, to decrease the capabilities of non-aligned states through sanctions, penalties, restrictions on military, but ultimately, international institutions appear to just be another instrument of competitive advantage that are co-opted by realists for the games of economics and power. So combining all of these different conceptual engineerings, these different alignment problems, there are a number of formulations that you can arrive at. So I view like cybernetic and AI theory as a conceptual adaptive system that's mapping complex adaptive systems. So these conceptual engineerings are trying to like update to match the reality that we face. Cybernetic AI theory is also a universal acid. So Dan Dennett used this term to refer to evolution, how it cuts through everything. So it doesn't just apply to natural selection, but also artificial selection. Markets operate according to evolutionary principles. And so I think in the same way, the like conceptual framework of AI is also, it can also be generalized to other types of systems. So there are four formulations. The meta-alignment problem, which emphasizes the alignment of human general collective intelligence and existing narrow AIs before the alignment of artificial general superintelligence, that's a prerequisite. The extended alignment problem, which emphasizes the alignment of intelligence in general in synergy. So in hybrid systems, and in sequence. So again, like the meta alignment problem, that you must align human intelligence before AI, and also in recursion, which is observing that human intelligence has created this cybernetic intelligence that has created the world system, and now the world system is recreating human intelligence in its own image and for its own purposes. This formulation as well, if anyone's familiar with the philosophy of mind, there's this idea of the extended mind or extended cognition, that thinking doesn't just occur in the brain, but it depends on certain features of the environment. So like using computers and writing as a form of like extended memory. And so there's a philosophical basis there. The cybernetic systems or distributed intelligence alignment problem, which emphasizes the alignment of complex adaptive systems. And then finally, I think the most fruitful, the world system AI alignment problem, which I define as the alignment of the multi-agent socio-technical world system as a cybernetic form of artificial collective superintelligence, plus the actual or technical artificial intelligence that it designs, develops, and integrates into itself. So this is looking at the alignment of the meta system, or which includes international institutions, nation states, and corporations as macro agents. So I think this is valuable because it diagnoses the problem. It's also a form of self-awareness, so that we acknowledge that we're part of this superintelligence. There's this phrase by the cybernetician Stafford Beer that viable systems regulate themselves, which I think is quite useful. I think it also represents a paradigm shift, replacing ideological debates about capitalism with a technical systems perspective. I think this framing allows for interdisciplinary insight, so conceptual borrowing, epistemic translation, metaphorical framing across domains. It also is a form of argument from consistency, or what I term an epistemic bait and switch. So if you're against an unaligned artificial superintelligence being brought into existence, then you should also be against the world system as it currently is. Finally, I think it also presents this unifying meta-narrative, that we're all part of this superintelligence, and that it was here before us and it will be here after us. Okay, here I've tried to formulate it more precisely. Um, so the world system AI alignment problem is a recursive problem of holistically aligning the objectives, controlling the capabilities, and enhancing the interpretability of collective and artificial intelligences as an emergent, multi-agent, complex, adaptive, socio-technical system. Very wordy, so I apologize. So the implication of this framing is that you're looking at aligning the world system and aligning AI as inextricable parts of a whole process. AI is situated within the wider systems context of the world system. It's an existing, self-improving superintelligence. It must be aligned as a precondition to the effective alignment of actual AI. And the like core analysis is that a growth maximizing world system that's composed of power maximizing states and profit maximizing corporations is not a safe cybernetic container and institutional design for the development and governance of AI, which should be fairly like obvious. Yeah, and as I've already said, I think the value here is that it's a non or post ideological reframing. One of the only papers on this model um, says that the purpose of seeing global corporate capitalist markets as a superintelligent machine is that it allows us to strip away the pervasive ideologies about markets and freedom and to look at the global economic system from an AI safety lens. So I think this is actually the implicit paradigm and consensus view that's expressed to varying extents by leading AI theorists. So I've already shown quite a number of quotes where leading theorists are discussing this idea of aligning corporations or aligning capitalism or conceptualizing intelligence in a broader way. And so all that my talk aims to do is to try and like formulate this more precisely. So this parallel extends all the way. You can take it to its extreme. So as well as the prospect of AI takeover in the future, we're undergoing what you might call world system AI takeover. So since the AI and cybernetics were founded, theorists have warned that machines will take control. Bostrom has warned of an AI takeover scenario. Carl Smith of human disempowerment. And this is also a concern that anti-capitalist theorists have raised. So this Marxist, I think in like the 1970s, he wrote that the capitalist mode of production survives by adapting itself to a degenerated humanity which lacks the power to destroy it. His essay was titled Decline of the Capitalist Mode of Production or Decline of Humanity. It's reflecting on how the Marxist theory of history seemed to have failed. Socialism and communism weren't realized, or post-capitalism, but instead the system has just adapted to like the modern industrial condition. So part of what my work is doing is trying to update this idea of the iron cage, which Weber briefly wrote about industrial capitalism, that the process of rationalization and the conversion of behavior into algorithms has only continued and become more sophisticated and advanced. So under AI capitalism, we now live in what could be called the silicon cage. A scholar of Weber, Anthony Giddens, in his lecture in the year 2000, which is quite famous, he raises the idea of a runaway world. And when talking about AI, people talk about the runaway AI. Both of them emphasize this accelerating loss of control over the future. And what the formulation of the world system AI alignment problem attempts to do is emphasize that the problem of the runaway world is now being compounded by the problem of runaway AI. Interestingly, both Marx and Stuart Russell, to draw a flattering comparison, I'm sure, they reference the Sorcerer's Apprentice when explaining the dangers of capitalism and AI, respectively. So, yeah, it seems theorists are drawing on the same like myths to understand this. Already been through that. I'm seeing the time, so I'm trying to move ahead. Another very interesting parallel is between Bostrom's articulation of a singleton, a world order in which there is a single decision-making agency at the highest level, and Hart and Negri, who are Marxist theorists, their articulation of an empire, which posits a regime that effectively encompasses the spatial totality, that effectively suspends history and fixes the existing state of affairs for eternity. And they both have the same properties, a like, hegemonic, totalizing system that maintains homeostasis, that regulates itself, and that will do so into the future, that's locked in. And so Bostrom says that a superintelligent machine could be a type of singleton, but that singleton could also arise through convergent value evolution, is the term that he uses. So you could view the kind of convergent value evolution of the world system towards capital accumulation as producing this global cybernetic intelligence singleton or empire. I think this view of intelligence alignment in sequence is quite useful. It reflects this notion discussed that the date of AI takeover is not the day that AI takes over, but instead it's the day that those that are trying to reduce AI risk are unable to do so, and that's happening currently. So within the AI literature, there are these ideas of basic AI drives and convergent instrumental goals, that all intelligent agents, no matter what final goal they have, will converge on the same instrumental or sub goals. And if you look at the phrasing in Bostrom's, he says, as long as they possess a sufficient level of intelligence agents. He doesn't specifically refer to artificial intelligences. I mean, even if he hadn't phrased it in that way, you can still generalize this. And there are two thought experiments that try to explain the idea of convergent instrumental goals and why it's dangerous. So the paperclip maximizer and the Riemann hypothesis on catastrophe. And in both cases, an AI is pursuing a goal, such as maximizing paperclips or solving this mathematical problem. And in doing so, it pursues goals such as resource acquisition. So the paperclip maximizer turns humans into paperclips because they're made out of atoms it can use. The Riemann AI turns the entire planet and the sun into a Matryoshka brain, which is a supercomputer, in order to solve this equation. So you can apply these basic AI drives or convergent instrumental goals to the world system as it was an AI. So you could look at how does the world system ensure its own self-preservation and the continuity of its goal content. So it does this through cultural indoctrination. So most humans believe that capitalism is aligned with human values, and that's valuable because then they'll support capitalism's existence. It does this through neoliberal foreign interference. So any nations that try to experiment with alternative systems will be shut down through economic warfare or sanctions or even like coups. And it does this through what's termed economic elite domination or regulatory capture. So instead of people espouse that we live in a democratic society in the West, but it's actually a business government. Corporations capture the government, and even if they didn't, the government has an interest in economic growth. The world system also pursues resource acquisition. So anyone familiar with history will know of like the spread of empires and colonies, and that's just the seed AIs, so the like proto states and before the emergence of a singleton. That's then developing, acquiring more resources that can be used to increase growth and increase their power. So you can see that the world system is manipulating like all levels of like mind and matter, so atoms, neurons, joules, and bits. Through its alien perspective, the capital AI sees populations as human capital or human material, biological machinery to be incorporated into its infrastructure. And you can view big data or dataism as a secondary optimizer that's trying to maximize data flow, where data is the supreme value, as Yuval Noah Harari puts it. You can view that as a secondary optimizer that the world system AI has created. Okay, I'm running short on time, so I'm just going to skip through. Yeah, so you can view market regulation as a form of narrow alignment. It's trying to close niches and loopholes, eliminate person incentives, and prevent specification gaming, which is satisfying the criteria of like maximizing profits in unintended ways. And market regulation is also trying to align this artificial evolutionary process of market competition to select against harm externalizing economic activity. Bostrom uses the term motivation selection as an alternative to alignment, and like clearly you could view human goal content design or reducing risk from the leveling act as a form of human motivation selection, and in the vulnerable world hypothesis, he proposes that as we can't effectively do human motivation selection, we can't eliminate the portion of the population that would cause a global catastrophic event. You have to resort to a surveillance state instead. I object to this idea. I don't think it would require like radically re-engineering human nature, as he says, perhaps of certain individuals. You can also view the strategy of differential technological development as a form of capability control for the world system, and technological immaturity as a form of capability control. So historically, the destructiveness of economic activity and conflict between states was limited by their technologies. And so prior to nuclear weapons, you couldn't cause the end of the world. And I like the way that Joseph characterizes this. He says, negative externalities flourish, and increasingly so as our technological capacity grows, often being used for the wrong purposes. This is all embodied in the market structure, like the tiny seed that sprouts a towering tree. Again, this metaphor of the seed, which is used to refer to seed AIs, like early AI models that haven't recursively self-improved yet. And finally, you can view AI as a capability increasing technology. So as the AI gets introduced, instead, corporations as a non-aligned agent will instrumentalize transformative AI for their goals. So on a more optimistic note, I'm trying to propose that there's a potential period of economic history that you could refer to as the Great Alignment that follows the Great Acceleration. So the Great Acceleration is the observation of exponential trends since about the 1950s across loads of different metrics like population growth and economic growth. And that this is essentially the intelligence explosion of capitalism as a superintelligence. So that's one possible scenario, that will undergo a great alignment where we can align this socio-economic system with the desirable future for humanity. Another is global catastrophe or the Great Annihilation. Another is dystopian lock-in, or a great authoritarianism that to which all previous forms of authoritarianism pale in comparison, and that could last forever. Um, Scott Alexander talks about the potential for an ascended economy where there are no longer humans engaged in the market. It's just AIs trading with AIs. So you might refer to that as the Great Ascension. It's a form of AI takeover. So I'm trying to create this kind of big history meta-narrative. Finally, I think that there are two framings that you can reflect upon here. So you can view the world system as a mechanical Turk or as an inverse mechanical Turk. So what do I mean by this? So if anyone's familiar with the history of AI, the mechanical Turk was an early proposed computer intelligence that could play chess, but it was actually just a human inside a box. But it was cleverly designed so that you couldn't tell that there was a human inside, and it fooled people for years. And so I think it captures this idea that whilst the world system may appear like it's this non-human agency over which we have no control, it derives its agency and intelligence from humans itself. So humanity isn't inside the box; it's underneath this veneer of like an alien intelligence. Conversely, you could also view it the other way around, that when we look at other humans, they look like humans, but they've actually been like infiltrated by this capitalist world system intelligence, and so all around us it appears to be like humanity is in control, but actually underneath there is this more powerful agency that's co-opting us. So whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, choice is yours. Okay, I didn't manage to get to my proposal for a critical systems catastrophic risk sub-movement. If anyone's interested, I can send you the link to a brief description of what that would entail. I know some people may have wanted to discuss this afterwards, so I'm going to stop sharing, and thanks for listening. I apologize if the talk was quite long and convoluted. Thank you.